a result of this early coinage as well. However, even though technology and society is beginning to now flourish in the Bronze Age, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Because for some malicious individuals, this development of society unintentionally allows depraved individuals to carry out horrific acts more easily. But first, even though the Bronze Age is a huge step up in technology, and there is some recorded evidence from the Bronze Age, historical accounts of serial killers from the Bronze Age are still few and far between. And I mean extremely few. Like, well, none. But in the context of the Bronze Age, it's not because there was no records, although documentation was extremely sparse due to limited records, surviving the sheer amount of time and turmoil from the Bronze Age to today. But even regardless of that fact, the way that records were taken and the subject matter of those records from the Bronze Age were simply completely different than the modern day. You see, today, if there is a serial killer, the media has absolutely no issue not only giving them the spotlight, but also giving them a cool nickname, in most cases unintentionally making them infamous, likely to the killer's satisfaction. However, in the Bronze Age, documentation was almost exclusively reserved for important matters, which at the time consisted of kings, wars, and laws, not necessarily individual criminals. Now, of course, that's not to say that violence wasn't a part of daily life in the Stone Age, because it definitely was in more ways than one. War, ritual sacrifice, and just general conflict. However, the specific set of circumstances required to be a serial killer were simply hard to come by. And the term serial killer didn't even exist. However, just because there's no records of a serial killer in the Bronze Age, that doesn't mean we can't make our own. And similar to the Stone Age, we're going to combine the lifestyle of the era and the habits of a serial killer to see exactly how a serial killer would operate and exist in this specific time period. In this instance, let's call this twisted individual the Bronze Bludgeoner. And we'll say this individual is, once again, a 25-year-old man. Upon first thought, it might seem obvious that for somebody who is young, healthy, in a time period where warfare is emerging, it would make perfect sense for somebody with the bloodlust to join the army. However, for a serial killer, that sort of violence doesn't satisfy their dark urge for control.